Welcome everyone to the January 20th, 2026 Ashland Conservation Commission meeting, which I'm calling to order at 7 o'clock. There is a quorum of the commission and this meeting is being recorded. Since this is a hybrid meeting, I have to read two statements before we get to our agenda. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast live by WACA-TV and live streamed on Facebook. Remote participation is available using the Zoom video conferencing platform. Any disruption with our video conferencing platform will result in the platform being shut down. Meetings will continue to be broadcast on WACA-TV. Under Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order, public boards are allowed to meet remotely. This order was most recently extended until July 2027 by Governor Healy as part of the supplemental budget bill signed in March of 2023. Please follow these procedures for attending and participating. The meetings of the Conservation Commission will be held using Zoom. As I identify the item on the agenda, the applicant for that agenda item will be given an opportunity to provide a presentation and will be allowed to share the screen to show plans, pictures, etc. At the end of the presentation, the chair will, myself, Greg Wands, will entertain questions and comments from the commission. When the commission's discussion has concluded, the chair will open up discussion from the public. Upon the hearing or meeting conclusion, a motion to continue or close the hearing will be entertained. After any discussion, the chair will call for a roll call vote. During the meeting, commission members will keep their video on and microphone muted unless speaking. Applicants and representatives, please keep video off and microphone muted until your agenda item is discussed. Public, please keep your microphone muted until recognized. If you're calling in by phone number, you can use the *9 feature to mute and unmute. If you need to share your screen, you may request permission through the chair to do so. When the discussion is open to the public, if you wish to ask a question or make a comment, you may request to speak by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. If you are calling in by phone number, you can use the *9 feature to raise and lower your hand. When acknowledged to speak, please state your name and address prior to speaking. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Comments must be limited to the Wetlands Protection Act, Ashland Wetlands Protection Bylaw, or Ashland Stormwater Management Bylaw. Questions and comments not related to the Commission's jurisdiction will not be accepted. During the meeting, the host, Becca Solomon, the Ashland Conservation Commission agent, will monitor the participants for raised hands and will be recording the names and addresses of commenters. Signing of the documents will occur during the week after the conclusion of the meeting. And also at the table, we have Michael Carter from GCG Associates. And it's now 7:04. When the clock strikes 7:05, I will open up our one and only scheduled hearing. Here we go. It's now 7:05, and I will open up the scheduled hearing. We have Notice of Intent, 61 Waverly Street, Map 15, Parcel 12, the Gutierrez Company, DEP, file number 95-1016. This was continued from January 5th, and we are in the process of undergoing a stormwater review by GCG Associates, a peer review. And the review is limited to the state of Massachusetts general laws, codes, and regulations only, as directed by the Conservation Commission. And so the GCG has submitted 44 comments to the notice of intent, and this meeting is specific to addressing these 44 comments. And we have in our possession the first round of replies to these comments. And we will kind of focus on some parts of this. This is going to be a long process, but we have, I would say, not all of the comments to the responses to the comments, but we have, it looks like, partial responses. And so I'm going to open it up to the commission. Actually, why don't we give the applicant an opportunity to speak to the responses to GCG's comments and where we're at right now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. For the record, my name is Israel Lopez with the Gutierrez Company on behalf of the applicant. I'm also joined this evening by our full team, which includes Luke Norton from Sanborn Head and Associates. He's our geotechnical and hydrogeo engineer. Mark Arnold, who's also here in person with Goddard Consultant. He's our wetland consultant. And joining us by Zoom tonight is Will Park, our civil engineer with SMMA. Will's got that bug that's been going around and affecting everyone. So he's joining by Zoom tonight and will be driving our presentation. We've received a number of comments, peer review comments, including the comment letter from GCG, Beals and Thomas. We have the comment letter from the agent and comments that we've also gathered from the commission during our conversations. And I think we've got a lot of material that we'd like to present tonight. The vice chair was kind enough to provide an outline of the topics that he'd like us to talk about tonight, and we plan to do just that. And so we've grouped the presentation and the topics in line with kind of the outline that we received from the vice chair, which include talking about bedrock and ledge on site, talking about hydrology at the site, and talking about the condition and the capacity of the culvert and the 12-inch RCP pipe that run along the street. And then lastly, we also wanted to provide an update on the wetland delineation and some comments that we've already been able to incorporate from Beals and Thomas's peer review. So we're pretty excited about, you know, being able to present all of that information. There's a lot there, and certainly, you know, the commission can stop us at any point in time and ask questions, but we had planned to kind of take each of those topics in turn, and I'll let each of our consultants kind of talk to each one of those if that's okay with the commission.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
I was just curious as to why you didn't supply the commission with a formal response to the GCG, as is usually the case, and as you did with the Hancock peer review for the zoning board.
We fully intend to do that. We've had a working session with GCG to talk through some of the higher level issues. What we wanted to do is sort of make sure that we're on, you know, that we cover kind of the high level. There's some major kind of hydrology and ledge questions that we think are important to kind of talk through. We're already in the process of putting together a full, you know, point by point 44. It's 44 questions, but then when you break them down into the subcategories within those questions, it's probably more like 60 or 70. So we're in the process of putting that memo together, and it's our intention to provide that in time for the next hearing. Okay. But we felt like there was a lot of material to kind of get through tonight, and then have tonight's conversation inform some of those details that are coming, or that are going to be included in the updated plan set. So we'll be providing an updated plan set and a full memo that has point-by-point responses to everything.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Luke Norton with Sanborn Head and Associates.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission. As Mr. Lopez has just indicated, my name is Luke Norton. I'm with Sanborn Head and Associates. I'm a geotechnical engineer and hydrogeologist, and I understand there's a fair number of comments and conversations surrounding bedrock, so I wanted to talk about bedrock at the site, starting at kind of a large regional scale and then bringing us down into the site proper with some of the particulars for the site. Up on the screens.
Mr. Norton, before you get too far
Sure.
into the weeds, there are people online watching, and it's on TV, so I realize that there's a certain level that you have to speak to, but if you can also speak in lay terms so
Sure.
that people understand what you're talking about.
I'll do my best, and if you have questions and I can rephrase or explain things as I go, I'm more than happy.
Thank you.
So we're going to start, like I said, kind of at a large scale, regional scale. There's been some questions related to faults or fault lines, and those are indicators of previous geologic activity. And so what I've got shown up on the screen is a mass mapper export. It's the state's GIS database, and we're looking at the bedrock lithology groups. So bedrock types kind of in large categories across the state. There's two colors shown kind of overlaying the map. There's a pink, which is kind of showing up red on the left, and then a green showing up on the right. The site is entirely within the pink Avalon granite rock type, and there's a discontinuity to the east of the site where the pink runs into the green. And that is one of the fault lines in proximity to the site. The other, I'll have to kind of zoom in, I think a little bit. You'll see it running right underneath Waverly Street. So it actually doesn't run on the site proper, but is immediately adjacent to it. And that's just a localized minor fault line within the Avalon granite geologic unit itself. And as I mentioned, fault lines are kind of evidence of previous geologic activity, movement in the earth that at one point changed or shifted the structure of the rock. And so Massachusetts and New England in general is not known for its seismic or ongoing movement, but we do still see evidence, historical evidence of this. These two particular faults, looking at some of the research done by others, geologists, would indicate that this type of movement may have been anywhere from 200 million to 500 million years ago, and it is not considered an active fault. So what we would expect today with this type of structure and discontinuity may be a zone of fracturing, maybe a zone of rock type change, could be displayed simply as color changes and rock type changes, or it could be, like I said, a zone where the rock appears more fractured than areas within between the fault lines. So as we zoom closer and closer to the site proper, you can see on this same map, it's represented with that red star. We actually see some localized features in the rock that we've been calling a ridge. So there are portions on the site where the rock is higher and other portions where it's lower. And I like to think of it as a forearm. And so I'm demonstrating this for those in the here in the room. This ridge runs northwest to southeast, And if you imagine the soil as it's deposited over this ridge, it falls away to the north and it falls away to the south. And we've done a series of test borings and test pits at the site to map that rock surface and to understand that ridge line that's buried below the ground surface. And there's also a little bit of evidence of that along Waverly Street, where in the past the front edge of that ridge, the fingertips, if you will, have been cut and exposed, and you can see that from the street level. In addition to the underlying rock, there is a soil layer across the site that contains a number of glacial boulders. And these range anywhere from like a 1 foot size diameter, size of my shoe, up to like 6 feet. And so there are some significant boulders observed at the site. And we've done a little bit of work looking at some of these larger boulders to understand if it's truly a bedrock outcrop or a surface a boulder feature. And as Will has brought up on the screen, there is a large surface boulder on a portion of the site that I think is discussed and mentioned in the comment letter being near test pit TP 106. So we're going to zoom in. And so Will, again, is doing a good job navigating for those paying attention to the screens. This surface feature, again, was evaluated in the field and determined to be a surface boulder, a large one, but not bedrock. So what we have is a site concept that takes advantage of this ridge feature, this bedrock ridge feature, that has kind of a high promontory in the center of the site, but falls away again to the north and falls away again to the south. And while we do anticipate encountering some bedrock during construction and needing to remove that, it's for limited utility pipes and limited building structures. It does not, in our estimation, interact with the stormwater systems. Those are located where the rock is dipping away. And Will is now showing two cross sections, a sheet with two cross sections. One where you can see the section is cut through that center line of the ridge. There's some...
Luke, let me just go back up to the key plan here.
Sure. So there's a section line BB that's cut kind of through the high point of the center line of the ridge, and then a section AA that's cut through an area where the rock has dipped away, and some of those subsurface systems are installed where the rock is at lower elevation. And when we talk about rock removal for that center line, what we're really thinking is taking the knuckles off of that ridge line, right? I was just demonstrating with my forearm. We're not looking at exposing a large bedrock cut surface. It's really just intentional trenching into the rock for proposed foundations and utilities. So the bedrock removal will be limited in scope and done in accordance with a controlled blasting plan. I believe that you've seen kind of the scope of that minimal blasting in the documents provided. For those who aren't familiar with kind of blasting methodologies, they're highly regulated. There's a lot of planning and thought put into those blasting plans, including surveys completed before the blasting occurs, monitoring of the blast sequence as the work goes on, and compliance with a whole host of state regulations. So I'll pause here. Like I said, we've started kind of at a very big regional perspective. We've kind of zoomed in on some site specifics and opportunity, I guess, to ask any questions before I hand off to other topics.
I have a comment. What, and you're probably aware of this, but just so everyone's having the same conversation, what we want to be aware of here is an issue that we ran into with the public safety building when they started to remove the bed, which is right down the street. Remove that bedrock, it was full of water, and it went all over the place. And that's one of the concerns that not only the commission has, but the townsfolk as well.
Sure.
So if we can, in your explanation of that, shed some light on whether this will happen or whether it won't happen and why.
Sure.
Thanks.
So as part of our explorations on site, we have the opportunity to observe groundwater levels if they're present. For the vast majority of the site, and specifically this central ridge that we've been talking about, we did not encounter groundwater. We would anticipate on a seasonal basis or after rainfall events, water that does successfully infiltrate into the ground would eventually trickle down, find its way to the bedrock surface. And usually that's a confining layer where the rock would preferably follow the top of rock down to a lower elevation as opposed to penetrate directly into the rock. We also don't see evidence of significant water-bearing fractures along Waverly Street. We have the benefit of seeing that exposed rock surface. And so the concept that we've seen from the data on site is that we don't have a water-filled rock. What we would kind of expect is in a local scenario during construction is having to deal with these low spots in the rock, right? As we physically remove material, install stormwater foundation elements and things of that nature. So much more on kind of a construction dewatering effort than a groundwater type of concern. And then the last thing is I mentioned that this rock removal is really kind of like scraping off high points as opposed to exposing a full vertical face of rock. And those are completely different types of rock removal settings. And one is much more susceptible to rock fracture, water-bearing fractures, things of that nature.
You mentioned also, kind of at the top, constructing it.
Oh, sure, yeah. Israel's remind me a good point. Part of the overall site that we're working on, the grade changes radially, meaning there's a high point at the center, and it gets lower kind of across the entire perimeter along Waverly Street, and then wrapping around to the north part of the site. So again, from a surface water perspective, going back to the idea that water will hit that either surface or penetrate down into the rock surface, it's going to shed radially to the generally to the north, northwest, northeast.
I have a couple of questions. The cross sections for bedrock that you show, how do you? It says approximate bedrock level. How did you determine that?
That's based on the explorations completed at the site. So we'll dig down where we encounter rock, either with an excavator or with a drill rig. We'll make a notation of that depth, and then we can make an elevation knowing what the ground surface is, and then the termination depth of the exploration.
So let me see if I understand it. You took test pits all around. You took the depth of bedrock, or not just depth of bedrock, but the actual depth of bedrock, whatever that elevation is.
The top of bedrock, that's correct.
Top of bedrock. And then you projected that over the site to come up with this approximate elevation.
That's correct.
And you're pretty confident of that. I mean, it's you didn't do any probing other than test pitting.
That's the common practice, is to do the test pits as the probing that you're talking about. We have the benefit, again, of the exposed rock face along Waverly Street to
Yep.
help tie in elevations that we're also seeing in the explorations. But yeah, generally speaking, we've included enough data points, exploration locations, to make a generalized statement about that ridge line and the rock surface.
So the bedrock, or the existing ground level more or less follows the bedrock?
In this case, yes.
Is
It's
that
not
typical?
always, it's
Not
not
always?
always true, but it's a good place to start.
Okay. And you're sure that your encounters through the test pitting isn't a boulder, but an actual bedrock?
We have some indications that we use to kind of help determine that in the field. Sometimes when the boulder's at the surface, like we showed in that photo, you can dig around the edge, right? And you can see there's an underside to that boulder, and it doesn't have a connection
Okay,
to
I
bedrock.
was wondering how you were able to tell
Yeah.
it was a boulder or not.
And in other cases, if it's a pit into the ground, there are some indications we look at with, moving the excavator bucket. Does the boulder also move,
Wiggle, yeah.
things of that nature, so.
Did, in your test pitting, did you characterize the condition of the bedrock? Is it competent rock? Is it weathered? Is it fractured? Is it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's only a limited amount of characterization we can do with the test pit.
Yeah,
And that's entirely dependent on kind of depth and, visuals that we can get as we stand at the surface.
sure.
So you can get a sense of what we call of the rippability of the rock. So is it easily pulled out, in chunks, which might indicate it's, more highly weathered or more highly fractured. In this case, from our observations, the rock was reasonably competent,
So it's pretty solid.
which is not too inconsistent with, a granite type of rock.
Yeah.
We discussed at the very beginning about, the site being predominantly Avalon granite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Norton. If that vein of granite runs where the public safety building is, up through your site and all the way back halfway across town, and there used to be an old granite quarry out there at one time, and where the high school was built had water in it. Where the public safety building was built has water in it. Where the old granite quarry has water in it. What makes you think that this rock is not full of water? And
Yeah.
I believe that's what you said, that
Yeah.
you came to
So-
that determination.
So I don't think I can speak directly to the fire station or the high school, but again, the elevation of, the fact that we're at a high point in that ridge line would certainly play into that determination. Again, the absence of rock and, obvious fracturing at the surface of the rock in our test pits, and then the evidence or absence of water-bearing fractures coming out at Waverly Street are all lines of evidence for our determination.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to echo what Carl was saying, that when they were building the public safety building, the contractors were incredulous about how much water they were dealing with. It was just coming out of the ground everywhere, and it was going across the road with all the mud and everything they were kicking up and into the river, and it was a huge problem for us for months because of that, and they were having a hell of a time with it. And they was something totally unexpected.
Sure.
So,
Luckily on that site, there were no houses down gradient.
right.
In this site, there is.
Yeah.
Right, so, I mean, that's obviously part of the reason, since this is all the same
Sure.
rock and the same formation.
I think if we were looking at, again, a more vertical cut, right, and a final exposed face of rock, right, you might see on like a highway trench or something like that. Our confidence rate might be a little bit different space, but where we're doing selective trenching for utilities and for foundations, again, at the high point of this ridge, to me, it speaks to a different condition.
Well, I sure hope you don't run into it.
Greg, I have a question. This is Bill.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
When you did the exploration for the bedrock, did you do all test pits using an excavator, or did you do borings too?
I believe we did both. Let me double check on my site plan here.
I only saw a reference to test pits. Two
Yeah,
different,
for
at two
this-
different times.
2 different times, that's correct.
Yeah.
So test pits on the site.
Just test pits?
That's correct.
Is there a
Okay.
reason you didn't do borings?
Yeah, that was a question. If you had done borings, I would have been interested if you had penetrated the bedrock to get a sense of its composition.
It's just a function of the
Characterization.
site and some of the information we knew, kind of going into it, looking at the site mapping. So in this case, we elected to use the test pits. When we when we drill, oftentimes we focus on the overburden, we focus on the soils above the rock, and we encounter the same type of refusal with a drilling machine as we would with an excavating machine. There are some specialized rock coring tools and techniques, but again, they weren't used on this particular site.
And when you talk about taking the, the top of the bedrock off, is that's for the building itself, correct? You'll be cutting down?
So we'll be cutting and removing some of the soil above the rock, and only in very isolated areas are we expecting, at the very bottom of footing excavations for, a handful of footings are expecting to encounter the rock. I mean, one of the considerations here with the proposed structure is to, have the structure at such an elevation where you don't have to do a massive amount of rock removal. So that's part of the consideration.
So you think most of the bedrock excavation will be occurring when you're constructing the utility lines?
That's correct. You can see that on the section currently being shown.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could chime in, as you can see, sorry, there's a lot of lines here on this plan. The estimated bedrock is the blue line here. We sited the building and, designed the site in a manner intentionally to avoid bedrock and try to get the building up as high as possible so that large significant areas of blasting wouldn't be required for the principal structure, for example. So we feel fairly confident that we're going to be above the bedrock and just removing the soil above it, as Luke just mentioned. And to answer your question, Mr. Moulton, most of the bedrock removal, which is this crosshatch pattern here, does occur in the parking lot on the East Union Street side, where there'll be minor ledge removal for utilities, stormwater, sewer, and water. And then the one exception is we do anticipate that 1 or 2 of the garages along East Union Street may be, the foundations may be within bedrock, but there also may be opportunities to take advantage of that bedrock to use as a competent foundation material and, pour slab on grade, for example. But I just wanted to emphasize that, a reason why a large boring program wasn't proposed from the beginning is because we felt confident that we had a site design that avoided it as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask who was speaking?
Yes, sir.
Who?
I'll introduce myself. Will Park, Civil.
Oh, you're
Engineer.
Will, okay.
Yes,
Your voice sounded different. I didn't think that was you.
And for your information, Bill Moulton is one of our commissioners that's remote, because we can't see you speaking in the room. That's.
Right.
Oh, that my video's taking up the whole screen. Apologies.
Yep.
Someone had a question for me?
Let me see. I just had just a question. So is the principal structure actually going to be in a bedrock depression? Is it going to be solid rock?
So going back to the center ridge analogy, a portion of the principal structure will be at the high point, and then, wings off of that will then be over portions where the rock starts to drop away. And so over kind of that ridge line, that's where we have the potential for a minor amount of rock removal for the foundations.
Okay. But it'll just be sitting on rock, the foundation?
So for geotechnical design, we do not typically recommend a combination of rock and soil. So they'll remove enough rock to put a soil cushion in so that all of the foundations are on soil.
Okay.
They'll replace some of the rock with a soil cushion.
Okay. So does the building have to be anchored in any way, or is it just gravity keeps it in?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Greg, Mike has a couple of questions.
Oh, yeah, Mike, go ahead. Yeah.
Mike Carter, GCG Associates. Couple things. Do you know how many test holes you did out there, Will?
Luke?
Luke or Will, yeah.
Sure.
20? Okay, I think, the commission has brought up a really good point. We're assuming the bedrock is parallel with the ground surface. And that's a good general assumption, but there's a lot of times the bedrock goes up and then it dips and then, as you know, goes down. And I think it's really kind of important that we really have an understanding of where you based your bedrock elevation on. And I would probably suggest that what we do is we just have a surface, you created a surface of where the bedrock is based upon assumptions, is that we have a plan that shows the elevation, like a topo plan, showing the elevation of the bedrock. And with the test holes on it, so we can have a good understanding if there's what we feel is adequate testing on the site to make sure that's safe. Because as Carl and Jean have indicated, the fire station, police station, they had a lot of problems. I wasn't even aware of that. But I've been involved in a project that was in the late 90s, early 2000s, when it was a liquor store at one point there. And a developer came in, and what they did, are you familiar with where the site is that we're talking about? The DPW, the town?
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, so, yeah, and they came in, a developer came in, and they were gonna build a strip plaza there. It was permitted and approved. And we ran into all kinds of stormwater issues. And it's literally right next to this parcel. And if you saw what they had to do to control the water, and then the town eventually found out what they did. This is on the same slope, very similar. And then you have exposed bedrock down on the street, which today is dry. I don't believe there's any issue with any surface water or groundwater breaking out onto the street. And we want to just make sure that when we're done here, that we've done the right due diligence to make sure that there's not going to be anything drained on the street. And maybe Luke or Will could speak to, you have your parking runs parallel with Waverly for basically the entire length of the project. And you have a drain line running parallel with Waverly, just up the hill about maybe, I don't have a scale with me, but let's say like 50 to 70 feet. And it's not clear to me whether you're gonna have to blast to put that drain line in. So you'd be blasting a trench parallel with Waverly Street. And when you blast a trench, it causes fractures, not just in the trench, it could cause fractures in the bedrock closer to Waverly, which could open up a potential way for water to flow down on the Waverly. What I'm trying to do is make sure the best I can that we're not gonna have surface water, groundwater, any kind of water just flowing down to Waverly Street and then creating a problem in the winter where it can be icing it, for example, like that. And I've run into this similar situation up off of Oak Street on Oregon, used to be known as Oregon Estates. If you go in that entrance, it's a big cut, and the developer spent a lot of money trying to fix it, never really truly got fixed, and I think the intent here is just to make sure that we don't have that same problem. So we might be, I'm asking maybe you create a surface, and we can take a look at it. Also, the drain lines, especially the one parallel with Waverly, because it's just uphill of it, it's on top of that edge. We take a look at what the profile of the ledge is there, and also maybe do some cross-sections of the site through Waverly up the site, because they're clearing right down to Waverly Street and where the bedrock is. And we want to just kind of get a sense of, so everybody knows what it's going to look like. Are you going to cut that rock back? I don't think you are.
So I think Will has brought up that section that you're referring to. We've done 2 sections. This one is, I believe, the section BB. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's zoom into the key plan again.
Yep.
Mike, are you in receipt of these sections?
Is that this part of the package you sent last Wednesday?
No, I believe these were submitted on December
Okay, it's part of the
27th.
original, but what I'm saying is I'd like to see, for example, bring the section back up that you have right now. And so we have the stormwater trench right there,
Correct.
right? And, just so everybody understands, this is I don't know what the scales are. Well, it's a horizontal of something and a vertical different, so it's squashed a lot, so that.
I prefer
there you go.
no vertical
All right.
exaggerations.
All
It's
right,
one to
no
one.
exaggeration, okay. So where is that storm drain water trench in ledge right there?
Yes, there will be minor ledge removal.
And then
This is-
same thing with the water right next to it?
Correct. For
Yeah,
a
this
portion
is
of it.
over 100 feet from Waverly Street. Here's the existing bedrock face right here.
Yeah. So are you saying that when you blast, you won't have any impact 100 feet away on the ledge?
We would not anticipate that. Typically, when we do mass blast removal, you're doing, shots that are 6 feet, 8 feet on center, with the understanding that, the energy is going into that radius. You're not looking to propagate, 100-foot cracks with your blast, and certainly not for a utility trench like this. This would not be considered like a mass blasting. It would be a very localized and focused blast pattern.
How deep below your trench do you typically drill the blast?
It's going to vary on the rock type, and the driller will submit a blast plan that shows that. But typically, you're going down a foot or 2 below the invert, and then they might drill, further than that, and then stem it and only load the blasting product, to the actual desired invert.
And so what if, for example, you have the ledge right at that, you have assumed ledge right at that spot. The ledge goes up and down. We could go 50 feet up along that water main that could drop down, so that now you have a low point in your ledge, which could create a path for water to flow. And that's why I'm asking for the surface. I think it's really important that we don't have that, any kind of runoff going, and I know you don't want it, I guarantee, because it'll be a never-ending problem. And time is to do the due diligence now and make sure that we don't have that. Can you ram that? That would eliminate,
There's the possibility. Yeah.
reduce it, let's put it that, reduce it substantially.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is piping along the pipe, water piping around the outside of the pipe in the trench.
It's gonna follow.
It's gonna follow the trench and then break out somewhere else.
It could, yeah, and that's what I want to make sure is that, if you're running parallel, a couple 100 feet, it's not going to be the same flat pancake the
If
entire
they
way.
were to put in breakers in the trench,
Clay barriers would work.
clay barriers,
That would help, yep.
that would help?
That would definitely help.
We had a situation elsewhere in town where a developer put in a sewer line down a slope and just put padding around the pipe, and the water piping down that slope along the outside of that sewer line was amazing. And you get down to the bottom of it, and it was just bubbling out of the ground because it was just following the pipe downhill. And they had no breakers in the trench, so there was nothing to stop the flow. And until it finally silted in, it was a mess. So I hear what you're saying, that would be a problem, and putting in some bentonite clay breakers in there would help stop that problem.
We would definitely agree to install those at a reasonable increment
Yep.
in areas where there was ledge removal for utilities to make sure that any groundwater migration stays localized.
And what, you know, right now, that section shows where the ledge is. If you go back westerly towards the town, they will be filling in on that slope, and there'll be some riprap. I think it's important, to take a look at different sections along that. You know, I believe, like you indicated, Will, you gave 2. I think we want to, just so everybody sees, because this shows that there's no disturbance to the right-of-way, but that's not the case for the most part of the entire thing, if I'm looking at the plan correctly.
That was the subject of a lot of discussion with the ZBA about whether to take that rock out and put a sidewalk in and so forth. And I know there was a lot of discussion about that. That's not our issue, but my understanding during that discussion, it came out that there was a lot of water coming out of that slope and that there is icing issues in the street. And I don't know I think Doug Small is on the phone, on the call here, and he might be able to address that as, our DPW director. But I was under the impression in the winter, there was a lot of icing issues along that stretch.
So we did take a look at the exposed slope, because we know it's a concern and a question. I described how when the water infiltrates down through the soil and hits the top of rock, it then follows along the top of that rock.
Right.
So that's what we were seeing, is either through a combination of melting at the surface or that water perched on the rock. It's a function of the season. It's not a function of the water bearing within the rock itself. There aren't like weathered fractures and signs that mineralization is being carried through by water within the rock itself.
I observed that area last week during that significant snow melt, and the area along the bedrock, the exposed bedrock along Waverly Street, was bone dry on the road, and maybe 5% of the rock face you could see snow melt coming down off of it. I know that's one data point, but it was during a substantial snow thaw last week where there was puddling in other places. We
are in a drought. Just bear that in mind too.
Yeah, and significant snow is, we haven't had any for like 3 years.
Right.
So there was snow melt, but I wouldn't exactly say it was significant. Mike, did you have a second question?
No, I will later on when we move forward.
I just wanted to ask Will Park if he could also comment on this particular subject about water kind of sheet flowing over the rock onto Waverly, and how our design actually helps to reduce that effect. So Will, I'll let you go through that, please.
Sure. I'm jumping ahead a few topics here, but for those familiar with our hydrology maps, we are collecting every drop of water that hits the developed area, the parking lots, the lawn areas, et cetera, and sending them to very large infiltration basins. That will significantly reduce the groundwater runoff that occurs down that exposed ledge onto Waverly Street, because we'll be collecting it at the surface, infiltrating it where we want to infiltrate it, so it will no longer be going into the soil, perhaps running along the top of the bedrock and coming out there. So we expect that after the site is constructed and stabilized, that just the sheer volume of water that goes into the site and infiltrates and runs out there will be significantly decreased. And getting ahead, one of GCG's comments that we'll address in our larger, our more thorough review is that we will be installing a impermeable liner curtain, if you will, on the downhill side of this. We don't, just because of how the elevations work out, we don't expect there to be breakout along this retaining wall or along Waverly Street, but we're adding that as a precaution. Again, to make sure the water, in the proposed conditions, the water goes where we want it to.
Can you go through that a little bit? I don't remember seeing anything about a curtain wall.
That will be included in the full response to
Oh, okay.
GCG comments,
Okay.
that
All right.
commitment. But we actually I might be able to just sketch it here quickly. Like here's those infiltration basins that are knocking the development runoff down to 0.0. Based on these elevations, we are very confident that the water infiltrating from the system will not travel horizontally 100 feet and break out at Waverly Street, nor do we think that it will jeopardize this relatively short retaining wall. However, we propose on the downhill sides to install an impermeable liner or like a curtain to further prevent that horizontal migration.
So it's just there at the infiltration chamber?
Yes.
Does that go down to bedrock?
No, you can see here there's 6 or 7 feet of separation.
So it just goes to what is existing grade?
It'll travel through like 7 feet of native soil,
Okay,
well infiltrating native soils.
yep.
To the commission, to the earlier comments, Doug Small, our DPW director, is online and I believe did have something to add to the conversation.
Hey,
Yeah, hi Doug, go ahead.
Doug, I accidentally muted you while trying to unmute you.
Nice.
how about now?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. I don't think it would be, as far as the icing on Waverly Street, there are two people that I know of that could speak a lot better to it than I can. And as far as, I would say Kevin Langmeyer from the department has more hands-on experience or whatever dealing with the salt and the icing conditions. And the other person is Jean Walker, who's a resident down the street. She's spoken about it a couple of times during these hearings. But I could come back with more information to talk more in detail about the icing on Waverly Street, but I'm not prepared right now. But maybe Jean could jump in.
Hi, Gene, do you want to speak to this issue?
Is she on the call?
She is, Jean, you're still
Yeah,
muted.
I'm unmuted now, I
There
think.
you go.
Okay, go ahead, Gene.
Okay, and what I'd like to add to this discussion is, I've lived here for 60 years. I've lived with that ledge, I've lived with the water coming out, when there were times when it was most dangerous out there. And something to note is the water that comes out of that for over the past year, not this year, because we have not had much of any melt at all. What we've had is nothing. And if water comes out of that ledge at all different levels, sometimes it comes out of the bottom, sometimes it comes out and you can see where it's coming out, sometimes by the ice that forms after it. So that is multi avenues that it takes to come out. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
To the
And
commission.
it certainly does create hazardous conditions. And the Public Works have been very good taking care of it, but sometimes that happens almost instantaneous, depending on how much rain, and you've got big rains and ice melt and the snow melt, and sometimes the snow is feet tall. That's a lot of water that's coming out of there. And where is it all coming from? All different directions
To
or
the-
levels. Okay.
To the commission, just to add for the record, while Jean, I believe, is speaking as a resident, in this case, Jean is also on our Stormwater Advisory Council, and is speaking from the experience of that as well.
All right, thank you, Gene. Do you have anything else to add?
That's it. That's all for now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair, could I follow up on that, please?
Sure, go ahead.
I didn't mean to say I just want to reiterate my one observation last week was a limited observation. I don't think the project team is denying that water does flow off that, whether it's from the surface or from groundwater. I am very confident that we will be improving that situation by capturing all the water on that hill and sending it where we want to. I think GCG would agree with that there'll be less water hitting the woods there, traveling along the surface or along the bedrock and coming out. We are collecting it and we're putting it in two very large infiltration systems, sited in an area away from this discussion problem area.
Okay, Mr. Park, you said that this would be in your follow-up presentation, so I think we can wait for that plan and move on from this right now,
Okay.
and have Mr. Norton continue his presentation.
Does anyone else from the commission like to speak to the bedrock?
Well, was I correct in that assertion, Mr. Park? You did say it was going to be in the follow-up responses to GCG comments?
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on this topic in the materials submitted to date, and this, we've once again heard the town's concerns, and we will incorporate that into future responses, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Preston.
Just one quick thing, I don't know that it's necessarily jurisdictional here, but as to blasting, I know a lot of residents I've heard from over the years have had very negative experiences with other developments. So anything you can do to use other techniques besides blasting would certainly make a lot of residents a lot more comfortable with the project.
Yeah, that's understood.
Anyone else? Okay. Are we all set with bedrock then?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, we can,
Greg,
Are we going to take public
You wanna-
comment
for
in
each set-
between, or what?
yeah,
yeah.
Why don't we do that,
Why don't we
'cause
do that? We
it's-
already took some online, we'll take it, yeah.
Through the commission, just to the public, a reminder to please state your name and address before you speak.
Art Johnson, 4 Roberts Road. When they were building the Sri Lakshmi Hindu temple at 117 Waverly Street, the construction company sent our family, I just found a letter recently saying that they would be blasting, and they came into the house and videotaped the interior walls to before and after shots. There was some minor cracks. A few years after that, I remember I was before, I don't know which board, but Cameron was there, Preston was there, they blasted without getting permission when they were expanding the parking lot. So there is a lot of, bedrock or whatever up there. I just hope that they alert the neighbors before they start blasting, because I'm sure there's gonna be blasting. I did drive by that ledge a week or so ago when it was melting, and there was water just coming out from all over the place up there, that's all.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, should we Move on, go ahead. Mr. Lopez, yeah.
Thank you, and yes, I just want to make one last comment on the ledge and blasting topic before we move on to hydrology, and that is, we have, and Sanborn Head in particular, working with us, has significant experience with sites that involve ledge, and we've done projects with Sanborn Head that involve exposing a shear face wall of, I don't know, what was 40 feet or so for a span of, 500 or 600 feet. So I think it's important to at least make the commission aware that we fully understand the ledge and the concerns around blasting and are very familiar with the pre-blast survey process and what was described in terms of doing that survey, making sure that residents within, I believe it's a 300 foot radius, or maybe that's 250, okay. Anyway, that is part of the process. Also, the ZBA's comprehensive permit includes significant conditions around blasting that require the project to provide a pre-blast survey plan to the fire department. The ZBA has the ability to engage a blasting peer review consultant at the time of construction if that's required. So there are lots of provisions within the existing permit that we have to abide by regarding that. So I just wanted to make that quick point.
But you do recognize and acknowledge our skepticism,
Sure.
given the history of that area with,
I think the biggest distinction, and we're very familiar with that because the site that I was describing earlier that we worked on was precisely a site that involved cutting and then exposing a massive, rock face wall. That is entirely different than our project here, where we're building essentially on top of the bedrock and then carving out channels selectively throughout the site. So it's a very, very different type of excavation program. But we fully understand the concern.
okay.
If there are no other questions, I think the next topic we wanted to cover was hydrology and go through that.
To the commission, you have another hand raised from Doug Small online as well.
Hi, Doug, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. While you're talking about blasting, I just thought it was important to mention the culvert in Waverly Street as far as the pre-blasting survey, whether to make sure that's included.
Good point.
That, Doug,
Thank you.
we're planning on having a discussion of that in a subsequent part of the presentation dealing with structural integrity. But seeing it's relevant to what we're talking about now, I think it's good to note that at that time.
Okay, thank you.
This time.
Would anyone else from the general public like to comment on bedrock issues? Okay, seeing none. So anyway, it was encouraging that hoe ramming is part of your rock moving repertoire. Yeah, when needed. Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, I think we can move on to hydrology now.
Okay, this portion will be presented by Will Park via Zoom.
Okay. All right, yeah.
Hello again, everyone. Again, sorry you can't see me with the screen share. So it was recommended that we talk high level about hydrology, which we're in favor of. There's kind of some alignment we're hoping to get before we submit that full response to GCG's comments. So within their comments, they made many about hydrology, but two in particular that we jumped right on. Those being, they made a recommendation that our hydrologic soil group be revised slightly from woods/grass combination in good condition to just woods in good condition. So we've done that across the site. They also recommended that we break out our design points around the site. In the original submission, the project had 3 design points. We've taken GCG's advice and broken some of those down further. And now we have 5 design points. Those being, the numbering a little funky. Design point 2 is the northern part of the wetland, the BVW, that flows through the swale to the stone box culvert.
Will,
Design
could you bring up the hydrology map, maybe?
Will, sorry, we stopped your screen share during the public comment. You'll have to restart it.
Oh yeah, that'll help. Here we go. Thank you. All right, you can see it now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So design point 2 is the northern part of the BVW that flows through the swale behind the neighboring properties into the stone box culvert. Design point 3 is the southeastern portion of the site that collects the southern part of the BVW and flows down to the culvert under, I believe, Nicky Terrace is the name of it. Design point 5, labeled down here, is everything to the west of the site. You'll see in later exhibits, it's in the proposed conditions, essentially just the native woods that will remain. The big change that GCG had recommended is introducing design point 4, which is what flows onto Waverly Street. We've broken down that further to what reaches Waverly Street versus what enters the catch basin system and the 12-inch RCP pipe that goes from that catch basin to the stone box culvert. The stone box culvert has been, I'm jumping ahead, observed by DPW, and those photos have been distributed. SMMA observed that as well, and the 12-inch inlet from the swale, along with the 12-inch RCP from the street catch basin. We have taken the commission's request and are now going to be showing that on our existing conditions plan as just a side note. So we took GCG's recommendations on the hydrology model and implemented them in both the existing and the proposed situations. As a result, the peak discharge rate summary, which we have submitted, looks as follows. The DP1, the 12-inch wave RCP catch basin and 12-inch RCP in Waverly Street. These are very, very small flows across the board here. I just want to emphasize that between the existing hydrologic soil group, A soils beneath the site and the robust infiltration system proposed. These are some of the smallest 10 discharge numbers I've seen in my career. We are not increasing the flow to the catch basin in the 2-year storm or the 10-year storm, and the northern part of the BVW, design point 2, that flows through the swale to the stone box culvert. We are not increasing the flow in the 2 or 10-year storms, which is I just want to remind everyone, the Wetland Protection Act performance standards point to the DEP Stormwater Handbook. Standard 2 requires meeting discharge rates in the existing and proposed conditions for the 2 and 10-year storm. The 100-year storm needs to ensure that no downstream flooding will occur. And and then they say, if that's a concern, then your BMPs should account for it. Our BMPs have accounted for it, and we are very confident that rounding, 1 CFS in the 100-year storm is not a concern for flooding. There's going to be a lot more things going on in a 100-year storm to worry about one CFS leaving those large chambers. Rounding out the rest of the site, Nicky Terrace in the southern part of the BVW, very similar situation, no increase in flow in the 2 and 10-year storms. The remainder of Waverly Street does have a very small increase in the 10-year storm, 0.05 CFS. And then all the drainage area to the west of the site, that's essentially the native wood line that we're maintaining, or a stabilized slope that will naturalize over time, has a no increase in the 2-year storm, but a 0.10 CFS increase in the 10-year storm. And I know I'm rambling here. I'll get to a good stopping point here in a moment. So going back to the proposed drainage map, I just want to emphasize that the drainage area maps are collecting water from the entire developed area, all parking lots, all lawns, all courtyards, everything. And generally going into one of these two systems. In the 10-year storm, you add these two together. In the 10-year storm, 20 CFS is going into them, 0.00 is leaving. So that just emphasizes how robust these systems are and how much the flow is decreasing. Those minor increases of 0.05 and 0.10 CFS are the result of these very small little strips around the perimeter, like the backside of the surface detention basin. This wooded area here that we are intentionally left preserved, just a result of hydrology modeling. When an area gets smaller, but TR55 or TR20 requires you to have a minimum 6-minute time of concentration, the numbers just kind of blow up, and in our opinion, don't really represent what will really be happening out there. We had a little pre-conference meeting with GCG and explained in our professional opinion, HydroCAD, the default modeling software, was not designed for drainage areas of a few hundred square feet. They're meant to model entire watersheds with discharge in the thousands of CFS, not down to the second decimal place. So we feel that we have designed a very environmentally responsible design with a very robust stormwater management system. I do want to just mention quickly, through GCG's comments and further reflection, we've revised this surface infiltration system to a surface detention system only. So we're no longer dealing with separation to groundwater clearance requirements and everything. We've also substituted out the small bioretention area here and are instead going to install a very small footprint storm tech subsurface detention system. Those yellow arches, only about 18 inches deep. That's what we're providing to catch the lowest catch basins that can physically be collected and routed to a stormwater BMP. Again, the last 20 feet of the driveway, with 1 or 2 cars queuing up, 1 car queuing up, that is the area that we physically cannot collect and route to a system. And that's what's throwing those numbers off for those numbers that appeared in red on the peak discharge table. This kind of came up earlier when we were talking about how we sited the building to avoid or absolutely minimize bedrock removal. Some folks may have seen a prior proposal on this site that had 360-degree retaining walls, finished floors that would have required massive blasting, and property-to-property line tree clearing. This is an exhibit we had put together for the ZBA that we think has a good representation of the responsible design, where we've left vegetated buffers in areas that probably could have been utilized. Similarly here in the western portion, we feel that this was the right thing to do, to leave a naturalized buffer here for the residents of Ashland and the adjacent neighbor. As a kind of worst case, what would be required, in our opinion, to reduce these two numbers here down to 0 point, or to match these numbers right next door, would have to be very irresponsible design that we don't want to volunteer just for the sake of chasing hundreds of CFS. This is just a quick markup of that disturbance exhibit, where we would have to install swales or curtain drains along the perimeters of the site. This area down here is lower, just for folks who aren't familiar. All along Waverly Street and all along East Union Street, and install 2 catch basins, 20 feet down from where the last ones we proposed, which are roughly here and here, that go to the subsurface system. We'd have to collect 2 catch basins here, route it hundreds of feet, and install a BMP in this area, which is lower. There's 5 feet of grade change, so we could get water to flow here. Install a hole in the ground with an outlet control structure tying into East Union Street drainage, all just to get these numbers to match these ones.
Can I jump in for 1 second, Mr. Park? This is Carl.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. People watching are going to have absolutely no idea what you're talking about here. So I'm going to try to put it in a little bit of context and then have you further clarify that. But there are, as it was mentioned at the beginning of the hearing, we're only applying state law here because we no longer have the ability, because of the comprehensive permit, to enforce local law. So there are state performance standards that govern stormwater. And that's what Mr. Park is talking about, trying to meet those standards. Trying to meet those standards means crunching a lot of numbers. So that's what we're getting at here. The idea is to keep the water on site in lay terms instead of having the water go all over the place. And again, these are not arbitrary performance standards, they're state standards. And I'm going to ask Mr. Park to elaborate on that a little bit if what I said was confusing, and ask Mr. Carter to weigh in on the crunching of these numbers, because that's what he's here for, to see if this all makes sense to him. Because it's very difficult. We're the conservation commissioners, and it's sometimes difficult for us to understand this stuff. So people watching it are probably having no idea what we're talking about here, and it's probably a good idea if they did. So, do you want to comment on that, Mr. Park, and then Mike, you jump in?
I have no. Thank you for taking a pause to make sure we're aligned on the topic. I have no additional commentary to your summary, and I would also like to hear from Mike Carter from GCG.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying that you're meeting these performance standards, and except in one slight exception, and in order to meet it, it would make the project less attractive, both physically and otherwise to the citizens of Ashland. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, and I actually just thought of one thing. There are 10 DEP treatment standards, the performance standards you refer to in the Wetlands Protection Act refer to the DEP Stormwater Management Manual or Handbook. That outlines 10 standards that you must meet. I believe in this information we've submitted to date that we've demonstrated compliance with all 10 of those. GCG's comments, which were much appreciated. I'll let Mike comment on this, but I don't think that I think they'd agreed that the project is very much in compliance with all those. We're submitting a few just extra calcs to support our stance on that. So we are talking about, a fraction of one of the 10 treatment standards. The other ones being, removal of sediment, having erosion controls, having a long-term operation and maintenance manual, providing groundwater recharge, which this project meets in spades. I think the project meets all 10 of the treatment standards very well. We've just received feedback that there's a hang up on chasing these hundredths of a CFS for this one treatment standard. And now I'll stop.
Well, can you bring that picture up you had where you had the red painted, the red colored area that we would have to disturb?
Yes, sir.
So first, we haven't reviewed any revised plans. So that, with that said, they're working towards complying with the stormwater, and they will most likely get there. And if we get down to it, that we have a 0.05 CFS increase in one area, and I think, Will, maybe if you could say that we don't have any increase in the total, that's one thing you could say. But to clear that whole red area on the screen for 0.05 CFS is I would say not in the best interest of the project, not in the best interest of the town. Leaves some undisturbed land. There's tree growth there. You're not adversely impacting anybody. Just to give you an idea, 0.05 CFS is 0.5 is 3 gallons a second. So 1/10 of that is 0.3 gallons a second. To put it in perspective, that's what 0.05 CFS is. So it's not a significant amount. If we can get all the other things complied with, and we've addressed the drainage, the 12-inch drain line in the culvert on Waverly Street, when we get to that point, I think it'll be fair to say that they've complied with the regulation. I think that sometimes, Will makes a very good point. These stormwater calculations are not an exact science. The TR55 and TR20 are for large watersheds, and we use them on small watersheds, and we use our best judgment. And in my best judgment, it wouldn't be worth cutting that red area to put in a stormwater system.
So the only options, there's no option in between either not meeting the standard or cutting down all the trees? There's no gray
We're not there
area?
yet. We're still, I need to see the revised plans, and maybe there's something that I see differently on the they've changed what they've done, they proposed initially, and I want to take a look at that. So
Okay.
I won't say, that's why I said I haven't reviewed the revised plans yet. But based upon, if that's the answer, it's probably not the best answer.
Okay, thank you.
Have we received the revised plans that change the infiltration basin and the rain garden?
I can answer that. In order to support this high-level conversation, to try to get some alignment, we submitted the hydrology maps
Yeah.
that showed the design points that GCG recommended, and we shared the peak discharge rate summary as a snapshot, if you will, where we are in the process. we are very actively submitting, preparing a conformed set of drawings, stormwater calculations, hydrology model, and a point-by-point response to GCG, the conservation agent's comments, Beals and Thomas' comments. We're expecting to submit all those in a few days. I completely agree that Mike has not received all the calcs behind the scenes to support these, and I fully understand that he would want to see those before, commenting with any more certainty.
So, another just following up question, the infiltration basin that is now a detention basin was changed because you're not meeting 2 feet of separation?
There was a few.
That,
We-
for
we-
those
I
who,
think-
one of the standards to be able to infiltrate under the stormwater manual standards that we have to operate on, there has to be 2 feet of separation between the bottom of an infiltration basin and seasonal high groundwater. If you don't have 2 feet of separation, you can't claim infiltration. And that's what I think we're getting at here.
Yeah, the design that we had originally submitted, sir, had, I believe the regulations say minimum 2, or more likely, if you want to avoid a very thorough groundwater mounting analysis, you need to provide 4 feet of separation. So the design that you saw last did provide the 4 feet, but because we didn't need the surface infiltration basin to meet our groundwater recharge requirement, standard 3 or 4 in the DEP handbook, because these two systems meet that groundwater recharge standard in spades. What it came down to is, it's not that we couldn't meet that separation, we needed the extra storage volume above grade to help with our peak discharge rate numbers. So we had to lower the system closer to the groundwater,
Oh, I see, okay.
and to your point, then it no longer could count as an infiltration system. But again, we weren't relying on it to meet the recharge treatment standard.
One of the other,
In case you were wondering, the reason this change.
I'm sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, one of the
No,
other aspects of the infiltration requirements are that any infiltration system has to be 50 feet away from a natural wetland to be claimed. Are your infiltration systems more than 50 feet from the wetland edge?
Yes, sir.
They are, okay.
This one, if it had remained a surface infiltration basin, would have been very close.
Okay, but the other ones are, certainly that big one, right, the yellow one, but the one on the other side, that's not within 50 feet?
That's correct. I mean, these lines here, this is the 25 foot, so that's probably 50. This is probably 80 feet away.
Okay. I have another question on your calculations. For DP 4 and 5, the ones that exceed, where the existing, or proposed will exceed existing, when you get to the 100-year storm, they considerably are reduced between existing and proposed. How does that happen? Usually it goes the other way, doesn't it? Doesn't it keep increasing as you go to a larger storm event?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd be happy to answer that correctly at the next hearing. My
Okay.
guess is
Okay,
it has something to do, I believe you have a stormwater design background, sir. It probably has to do with the fact that like the individual hydrographs of all the pieces going into these design points, they all kind of peak at the same time. so that the cumulative is very high, whereas these ones, don't peak at the same time, so the cumulative effect doesn't hit all at the same time for the 100-year storm. I'm not doing a good job of explaining that, but I would enjoy looking into that further and provided, better answer next hearing.
Okay, no, I think I understand what you're saying. It spreads out the peak.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is something that's different between the state regulations and the local regulations, is the local regulations say not only are you not supposed to increase the peak, but you're also not supposed to increase the total, but
Volume.
but you're the total volume. But I believe that's not applicable in this case. That's just for reference.
That's correct.
Okay, sorry I interrupted you, Mr. Park, if you want to continue.
No problem at all.
I'm just trying to get some perspective for the other people that are watching and listening to that.
What I think also, what we will need, because this issue has been raised by DEP, as I'm sure you're aware, is a pretty detailed discussion as to why this is not an issue for exceeding the standard.
Understood.
And it's not us that has to make that argument, it's you, so.
Yeah. Yep, I agree with that. I think it's just important we will do that.
Okay.
My last comment on hydrology is the design points that drain to a bordering vegetated wetland and the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act do not have an increase. These two go to the stone box culvert. They meet standard 2. This is the design point that goes to the southern wetland. It meets standard 2. So the ones that don't are not, this is not the full explanation, but they do not go towards a wetland resource area that we are very confident is the intent of the Wetlands Protection Act and the DEP stormwater standards. They're not going to be impacting the BVW or the swale that connects the BVW to the stone box culvert. So that will be an underlying part of that explanation, sir.
Okay.
To the commission, I'm just going to add that the Waverly Street and Union Street, after they meet, does drain from a culvert into the Sudbury River directly as well. So it does eventually make its way to the Sudbury.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're up.
Okay, I was done. That's kind of a nice segue. I was all set with hydrology and was going to just transition to the conditions and capacity of the 12-inch RCP and the stone box culvert. Is that acceptable?
Do you want to take any questions
I
with
think
regard
we'll,
to hydrology?
for this particular topic, I'll open it
Sure.
up for public comment. Is anyone in the public like to comment on the hydrology as explained?
To the commission, I don't have any hands raised online.
All right, Mr. Park, we can move on.
Great.
Just before you start, Mr. Park, we don't have any comments from you regarding what you're about to delve into here with regard to the comments from GCG. So are we going someplace that we should wait for comments, or how do you want to work that?
We are planning to include all of these in the submission in the next few days. I think these topics have come up in every commission hearing, so I think we're speaking at a high enough level that there's nothing here that's a heavy lift that needed advance review time.
Okay.
If you feel that's not the case, just let me know.
No, we've talked in general terms prior to this, and I would be hesitant to talk in specifics without anything before either our peer reviewer or the commission to review, because there's no commentary in your narrative here with regard to this stuff. But if we want to talk about it in general terms, then I'm comfortable with that. I don't know about you, Greg, or the other commissioners.
Yeah, if we have any kind of, anything new to talk about.
To the commission, before you go into that, a hand did just raise from Marty Ring online.
Oh, all right. Hey, Marty, you're,
You hear me?
yeah, floor is yours.
Okay. I was a different kind of engineer than Mr. Park, but I do have a question that he will be able to answer at some point. You mentioned that you're using models to do the predictions. Hooray, that's a great thing to do. You mentioned that the models are used to generally model much larger systems. So it might just be interesting to know what the resolution of the model itself is. Because if those extra digits don't mean anything to you, they probably don't mean anything to us either. Hey, I was an acoustical engineer, and when people start talking about dB, how many dB is it? I just kind of laugh because there's no real understanding that it's a logarithmic thing. And I'm pretty sure your cubic feet per minute is got some resolution issue too. Because if they're used to modeling hundreds of thousands of gallons, and we're talking about 0.01 and 0.02, it's like absurd. So it would be best if you could specify this is the resolution or the accuracy or whatever you want to call it of the tool itself, so that we could say, that's just a bogus number.
Permission to comment, Chair, or would you prefer to?
Yeah, if you'd like to comment, Mr. Park, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We are reviewing all of those things to support our stance about the precision that's implied by these, which we feel strongly should not apply. Including getting down to the basics of HydroCAD software, all the various inputs, and you look at all the examples that they provide in their literature, and it is the thousands of CFS, not the thousandths. So we're working on it. I appreciate your input.
It might be best just not to even show those, unless they're standards. If you said they're standards, then that's a problem. But if they're prior and post and things like that, what is zero anyway? Never mind, that's a philosophical question.
Yeah, we're in favor of and moving forward as a firm. We're probably going to re-examine how many decimal places we report this to for situations just like this. And we've tried to make, this is the model that we presented to the ZBA and their stormwater peer reviewer, Hancock Associates, who's a very reputable firm. They came to the same conclusion we did. There's other people, as someone on the chair, on the commission mentioned, other parties have chimed in and said, give us all the decimal places. So we're kind of in a tight spot here. Trying to, and I'm not sharing my screen anymore, but I wanted to flash the disturbance figure with all the red on it. We're trying to avoid this. Tree clearing and taking up someone's backyard to chase hundreds of CFS.
Right, well, and the truth is that every estimate comes with an unknown quantity. Well, there's part of this I'm not really sure of, you know, and when you're talking about 0.01 CFM, that's an absurd small number.
It was a number that was actually brought to our attention by DEP. So we would be derelict to ignore the state agency that is governing our deliberation on this project.
Then so you know, the standard is no increase. That's what we are trying to get to. If it was a decrease, that would have been okay, but a no increase is the standard.
Measured or estimated about the future? That's really the question. It's not so much what is estimated, but what is the reality that happens?
Well,
And
you
that's really what's going to matter. If
you
you
can't- you
estimate
can't-
something that's too small to measure or too small to predict, really, that's the question. I'm questioning the software tool and the answer, and what kind of fidelity, truthiness does that have? To me, it's got some, but I see the skepticism from the engineer who says, oh, well, yeah, but, and I hear your standard things. You've got to meet the standards, no doubt. And I stand back because I don't know anything about that.
Well, we don't have to meet it, we have to enforce it.
And we may come to the same conclusion that you have, Mr. Ring, but we still have to do the deliberation of the figures and this presentation. So everyone, all the cards are on the table when the final decision is made with regard to this application.
Are you all set, Marty? Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the general public like to weigh in?
I do not see any more hands raised at the moment.
Okay, and from the commission? Ready to move on?
I'm good, we can move
We can
on.
move forward.
Okay, all right, why don't we move on to culvert structural integrity?
Great, thank you. And I will reshare my screen ahead of time. Okay, can everyone see existing conditions?
Yep.
Great. So, at the commission's request, we have expanded our existing conditions viewport to show the northern cell of the BVW that flows through a swale behind the neighboring properties into a head wall and through a 12-inch RCP pipe into what everyone is referring to as the stone box culvert. This is one of the design points that we are analyzing. We are also proposing a piped connection to this existing catch basin in Waverly Street that flows through a 12-inch RCP, and those two 12-inch RCP pipes converge in a structure here within the stone box culvert. So speaking, you know, and just want to reiterate, we are not increasing the flow to either of these or adversely impacting either of these routes off-site. And we are not the only contribution of flow to these two routes. You know, there's many offsite properties that flow to this swale and several that are connected to this drainage system. So in terms of the capacity, the recommended agenda item was structural integrity. We interpret that more as a condition assessment as well as the capacity. Speaking to the capacity of the stone box culvert, I and several others on this call had the privilege of walking up in there and examining it. I don't think our team is disputing the age of the stone box culvert or the condition of some of the supporting elements. Sorry, I'm jumping around. I meant to stand capacity. When you're in there, it is bone dry. There are absolutely no concerns. You know, it's 4 feet wide, probably 3 feet tall. No signs of gullying or erosion in the bottom. My guess is that it stays dry most of the time. And our project will not be changing that existing condition. Regarding the capacity of the 12-inch RCP, we can provide these calculations, even with very conservative estimates, that this pipe has a bare minimum slope of 0.5%. We calculate this pipe has a capacity of about 2.5 CFS. And, you know, we're reminded that in the proposed conditions, we think all contributing flows will be 1.3 CFS in the 100-year storm. So even in a 100-year storm, that pipe has available capacity. Regarding the condition of these two receiving structures, and this is what I was saying earlier, I don't think the project team is arguing that, you know, the age of this stone box culvert, but it also is functioning as originally intended. All of this is. And we don't feel that the project is going to change the condition of that pipe. Similarly, the 12-inch RCP, I believe folks have observed photos collected by the DPW, which took pictures in each end. I also took photos and videos from each end, and I was actually surprised that I actually think it's in better condition than those original DPW prepared pictures would lead you to believe. You take a static picture in a pipe in the dark, and even the slightest little change in surface will cast a 2 or 3 inch long shadow that looks like disjointed pipes have separated 3 inches. Whereas I, you know, looked around it and everything, and the pipes are actually connected a lot better than I was expecting, both of them. Yes, there's a few tree roots coming in or other buildup of some debris, but that's what you can expect from a probably, you know, 50, 70-year-old pipe. So we're not arguing the age of this, but we do think that it is adequate to convey these very minor flows that we're proposing. Again, these are the ones to the 12-inch RCP. So that was just the high level. Israel, I don't know if there's any more comments you wanted to provide on these. We just wanted to share our initial thoughts on the condition and capacity of these two town structures.
I think the only thing I would add that's sort of critical to this whole conversation, you know, so the commission has asked us to look at the condition of the pipe, the condition of the culvert, the capacity within each of those structures. But I think the gating question and really the threshold issue is whether the commission, Like, is there a predictive, a reasonable assumption that any increase in flow from our project will have any impact on any downstream resource from either of those two structures? And I think our strong view is that the answer to that question is no. Our project is not contributing any flow either through the 12-inch RCP or through the design point that routes through the swale, which is itself hundreds of feet long, and then, through the culvert, and then ultimately downstream to some undefined resource downstream. So, the comment that was also provided by DEP, I think, is a little bit misleading because it suggests that DEP standard, and I've got my, wetland scientist here, I've got my civil engineer on the line, so they can correct me if I'm wrong, but the WPA standard is not, is there an absolute increase? The WPA standard is there an impact, material alteration to a downstream resource area? And that hasn't, so our project demonstrates that we're meeting the standards set by DEP, and there is no downstream impact of that. So to get into an analysis of the capacity of the 12-inch RCP and an analysis of the culvert is sort of putting the cart before the horse to some degree. We all, understand the conditions of those elements, but our project isn't overburdening those elements as we've demonstrated through the materials that we've submitted.
Well, first of all, Mr. Park mentioned that the culvert was bone dry. There's severe scouring from that culvert down towards the railroad tracks, which then goes under the railroad tracks and into the Sudbury River. So to deny that there's water there is just not accurate. But in the peer review, and that's why I didn't want to go to this tonight, because we could be here all night discussing this. One of the notes in the peer review says closed circuit television inspection of the pipe at a minimum should be asked. Would that be something that you would agree to so that we can actually have a conversation about instead of speculating what the condition of that pipe is that connects the culvert to the storm drain?
I think we would actually consider going further than than conducting a CCT of that pipe. I think we would consider a condition within the order of conditions that gave us the ability to replace that pipe. I don't think, we're not questioning, and by doing that, it would be doing it voluntarily as a good faith measure and as a benefit to the town without, at all conceding that it's necessary in order to support the flow from our project, which we're demonstrating is zero, essentially. But because I don't think I think we can debate, even with CCTV, whether, this crack is significant or not significant. And again, I think all of those things are sort of really kind of putting the cart before the horse in terms of, we're not proposing any work currently, within, at the stone box culvert, 100 feet within that. So there's no work that our project is proposing within 100 feet of either, within 100 feet of the stone box culvert. We've already proposed with our ZBA and comp permit application that we would install a new catch basin and drainage manhole structure at that, near the site entrance, which we think, again, is an improvement to that location. And this would be a further improvement of that location. And I think, again, we think that would be a good benefit for the town to improve the resiliency of that system, at that location.
So I have a question and a comment, follow-up. What you're calling a swale and what maybe an intermittent stream that leads your wetland and goes down to that stone culvert. That was taken into account in your calculations, the water leaving the wetland through that area?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because
exactly.
that is going into the culvert.
Yes.
That very obviously is going into the
Yes.
culvert. That's the
And
point
that's
that I
what we're
wanted to
saying
make.
is zero. That's what we're saying, that there's no flow, 0.00 flow from the project going into that swale and ultimately routing its way through to the stone culvert. And just to clarify, 0.00 increase.
Increase. right.
Increase.
Okay, I was going to say, that's
Which is,
impossible.
which is the standard, I apologize.
Right.
Okay, and just so that this is clear, you're suggesting that instead of scoping that pipe, including a condition that you would replace the pipe?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's something that we need to talk about at the next meeting, but it's certainly something I think that could take into consideration.
I have a question, I think it's for Mr. Parks. You're showing on your map or your plan for the existing and actually in proposed that DP1 is the catch basin, am I not correct?
That's correct.
So that goes into this pipe down the road and then intersects and empties into that cross culvert under Waverly Street. And then DP2 is the wetland in the back, and that also is receiving flow from the site, correct, from the infiltration chambers?
Correct.
And that then goes into the intermittent stream that goes off-site, off-property, around the neighboring property, and then down, and that joins into that culvert again. So basically, once we get to that culvert, I guess my question is, what sub-watersheds are contributing to that culvert? 1 and 2, what about 3 and 4? Three goes towards Union Street, I think, but it also goes into the wetland in the back, but I think you're saying the wetland in the back drains to Union Street, correct? Or under Nicky Terrace?
I'm still sharing, right?
Yeah.
Our drainage areas, like every project, terminates at the property line. Or when we're not
Right.
disturbing to the property line, we chose to use the 25-foot no disturb buffer along the wetlands as our downhill boundary of the catch basin areas.
Okay,
If I follow your questions, we don't disagree that these do commingle.
right, I mean, eventually they come together downstream, and you're, if you want to call it a super design point, would be the culvert. Because
Well-
several watersheds are ultimately joining in that location, and as well as, say, the Nicky Terrace culvert, because several things are going in that direction once they leave your site. I guess what I'm getting at is, what kind of flow are we getting through that culvert? In other
Yeah.
words, what sub-watersheds are contributing to that culvert?
Yeah, and if you were suggesting that we might want to consider combining these design points to see where they combine, at their final receiving water or watershed of, Massachusetts, that's kind of going in the opposite direction of what our peer reviewer suggested, which is looking at it at a more micro level and breaking them down.
Well, I think for the purposes of your drainage system, you need to break it down, because they're going into different aspects, different infiltration systems and so forth, and obviously that's got to be treated separately. But in this case, they're all coming back together once they are released from your site and joining at the upstream end of that culvert. I'm just trying to get an idea of what kind of flow is being contributed to that culvert?
Yeah, we didn't analyze that, sir. You know, it's a large catchment area that
Yep,
includes, you know, the storage,
yep.
the storage facility, includes these private residences, it includes this, auto.
Oh, yeah, I'm not asking you to reanalyze the whole neighborhood. I just want to know what your contribution is to the upstream end of that culvert that you
It
have
is-
already analyzed.
Yeah, it is these two numbers put together, or these two numbers put together.
Which ones now? DP1?
This is what's flowing to the stone box culvert,
Okay.
these numbers, DP1 plus DP2 from
Well,
our side.
actually, it might not be. The straight addition assumes that they're happening at the same time, but the way they get there is different,
Yeah,
so
no,
there
I
may
get
be
that.
delays. So it may not be just a straight addition.
Yeah,
Right,
Which would reduce those numbers.
right,
Probably.
Right.
potentially, right. But because in your hydrology, you maybe get DP4 in a box on the other side of Waverly Street, and I think that's supposed to represent Waverly Street as the design point?
yes, sir.
Okay, so that's getting down to that culvert too, isn't it not?
There's a lot of low points on Waverly Street that may sheet flow over the road, or just pond on Waverly Street until they infiltrate. We were asked to break these down as we did. We don't typically analyze them. I mean, for such a small site, I don't understand where the line of question is going, to be perfectly honest, sir.
I just want to know how much water is going through the culvert from your site.
And it is our proposal that it is the addition of these two rows.
1 and 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you originally said that the capacity of that culvert was 2.5 CFS.
Okay, two different things.
No, it isn't, because when we put DP1 and DP2 together, we get over 2.5 CFS.
No, the capacity of this pipe here is 2.5 CFS. The capacity of the stone box culvert, where the two design points eventually meet, the capacity of a 4x3 stone box culvert is
More than that.
dozens and dozens and dozens of CFS.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, but I wrote down 2.5 because you said the stone box culvert was 2.5 CFS capacity.
No, I'm sorry, I might have been rambling there. This 12-inch RCP is the,
Is 2.5,
yes, sir.
okay. So theoretically, everything should fit in that pipe,
Yes, sir.
okay. Greg?
Well, just to that, my understanding is that, 2.5 CFS sounds like reasonable for the 12-inch, but on the box culvert, didn't they put a 12-inch pipe into the end of the box culvert and that extends up to the drainage swale, the intermittent stream? So that restricts the flow going in the box culvert, or am I wrong, based on some of the photographs that the DPW took?
You are correct. It
Yeah.
enters a head wall here and a similar 12-inch, and, can
So there's-
probably assume that has a similar.
Yeah. So the culvert has a huge capacity, but the two pipes
But
that
you can only
feed
get,
it are gonna restrict what
you
goes
can
in
only get
there.
about 5 CFS in at full capacity.
Yeah, if we use the 2.5, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're also getting into looking at the hydraulics of this
Right.
very, very, very long swale, and how much a 300-foot long swale with overgrown weeds and everything, that takes the whack out of discharge rates very quickly, whether it's coming from the BVW on our property or the offsite storage unit or the automobile place. They all enter flow at a different point, and it infiltrates while it slowly trickles through all those reeds. It's, back to an earlier conversation, there's so many variables here, and it's our professional opinion that this project is not adversely affecting the BVW on site, and definitely not a stone box culvert that's been there for 100 years and we're not increasing flow to.
Greg?
Any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to keep coming back to this, Mr. Lopez, but do you understand the perception of this to lay people? You're taking a hill that's totally pervious and creating a whole lot of impervious area. Most logical people would say, where's all of this water going to go? And they probably feel like it's going to come down into the street. And so you're doing this analysis, and we appreciate that. We're just trying to make sure that that doesn't happen here, and that the people that are watching this understand what it is that you're proposing and what it is that we are reviewing. Because we're talking in a lot of technical terms here that most people don't understand. And I think that skeptics might say it's not possible to take all of that pervious surface, make it impervious, and not have that water run someplace else. And the reason they probably feel that way is because oftentimes it has, particularly in this town, when they were told that it wouldn't, and it has. And so that's why I think that this is all important, and it's all important that people understand what we're talking about here. And it's important that Mr. Carter is on the same page as you, and we're depending on his expertise to guide us through a lot of this process. But getting back to the peer review, page 3, and we talked in our email exchange about page 3. Page 3 wasn't covered at all in your memorandum. A lot of what's in page 3 would be addressed by your proposal, and so I'm assuming that will be in your updated answers, that proposal that you suggested about replacing the pipe.
Yes, we can
Something that
put that.
we would then consider whether
Sure.
that works. We would have to, we would have to get DPW involved in that discussion as
Sure.
well,
Sure.
because it's not,
It's not our pipe.
yeah.
No, understood.
So that's something that would have to have a broader conversation than just here, and particularly tonight, so.
Sure, understood. And again, in the comp permit conditions, there's a requirement to provide DPW with plans, with our proposed construction plans prior to construction for their review and approval, and this could easily be part of that process. So I would fully expect that we could work something out where DEP would provide input and feedback on the scope of work.
DPW,
I'm sorry, I said DEP and DPW.
yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah, replacing that pipe would require a road opening permit, and you probably need that anyway, just to put your
Correct.
driveways into the street, but that would just be another facet of that permit.
Correct.
To the commission, I just want to confirm for the record, I've put page 3 of the GCG report on the screen here. Carl, is this the section that you are referring to?
It's almost the entire page. It's point 4, point 5, and point 7 all deal with this issue that we're talking about to a certain degree.
For the members of the public, if this is not already on the Ashland Conservation webpage under current projects, it will be on by tomorrow, but I believe it's already on there. if anybody wants to review that in more detail.
I have one more question for you, Mr. Lopez. If we're going to continue this hearing, which I assume that we are, we're going to have to bring back Mr. Carter. And our current contract is for 2 hearings, which he's already been to. Would you be amenable to changing the peer review to include one more visit to the hearing?
I was going to make a joke, but I won't. I'll just say yes. That would be fine.
Is it a good joke, or is it?
Well, it probably would not have been a good joke. So
Well-
There was one other topic that we wanted to touch on tonight, and that has to do with the wetland delineation. We didn't submit anything formally because we received the Beals and Thomas memo after we had already submitted our response to comments. But we have had a chance to review both their stormwater-related comments and their wetland delineation comments, and I wanted to just have Mark Arnold from Goddard come and just speak to our proposed responses, at least to on the delineation part of that.
Well, do we have that? Do we have the Beals and Thomas peer review?
So to the commission, the Beals and Thomas peer review was forwarded to you when we received it, but it was not part of your formal meeting packet because the meeting packet was sent out before then. So it may have gotten lost in the mix there. It did have some recommended changes to some of the wetlands flags in it, which I myself have not reviewed either. So it's up to the commission if you want to go over it now or wait until you have time to review.
Are we going to have a Beals and Thomas representative at the hearing?
Yes, you have one, I believe only one hearing scheduled under their scope of services, and I believe they were intending to wait until the commission was ready for them. Right now, the report, I believe, only reviews the delineation. They have a second report coming that will review the meeting of the Wetlands Protection Act regulations themselves, which I believe they were waiting for the revised plans in response to GCG that they were anticipating.
Would it be better to wait for them?
So to the chair, we have information that we'd like to present to you tonight. And we expect you to review that information along with information that we will be submitting, as Mr. Lopez has stated multiple times, that we will be submitting full information that basically details and covers in more detail what we've presented tonight. So we're not expecting the commission to make a decision tonight. We're not expecting full discussion per se. We just want to present information because we think it's important that you hear this information as you and then as you get the information and you read it, you'll recall what we presented, you'll see that continuity, and you'll understand more fully the information, and that helps you understand the information better, which gives the next meeting more continuity in terms of your review. So that's what our hope is. And this should be pretty quick because it's actually a lot of just basically saying those comments are acknowledged and we're going to make those changes to the plans, and we're not disputing or questioning what they're asking for. So if we can proceed with that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and proceed?
Thank you. So again, Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting, Senior Soil Scientist. So just to walk through, so the commission reviewed this delineation as part of a site walk, and there was one flagging change that was requested during that site walk. In addition, there were 2 locations that the commission requested DEP data sheets be provided to document whether or not that wetland line was accurate per Mass DEP's delineation guideline from 2022. We submitted those information along with a supplemental WBR in December of last year. So the commission has that information documenting that, and to date we've not heard any comments from Beals and Thomas or this commission about that data being inaccurate to document the wetland line being accurate. In supplemental consequence, Beals and Thomas went out and actually reviewed these locations, and they actually made 2 flagging changes along with an additional flagging change. One flagging change was between S4 and S5. It basically just kind of it better defines the bank based on the topo. That flagging change is fine. You'll see that updated on the plan. We're not suggesting any changes besides complying with what Beals and Thomas is suggesting at that location. The next question was at A46. Beals and Thomas recommended a change there as well. We looked at it. We dispute the fact that that is accurate. However, we're willing to concede and let it be the wetland line for the project. We're updating the plans to show that point being part of the wetland line, connecting appropriately, and the plans will be reflecting that we're still staying outside the 25-foot buffer zone from that. Again, our DEP data sheets that we did submit document that that area is upland. However, rather than, doing a lot more field data and, going out in 10 degrees this weekend, we decided just to let the wetland line be where Beals and Thomas says they think it might be. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna concede that point. So again, basically, we're gonna use that flag point for our wetland delineation and tie it into our other flags, which were not questioned. At GCA 35, there was also a question there of hydrology. Again, our DEP data sheets demonstrate that that area is not a wetland per the Mass DEP guidelines. You may see soil colors in pictures, but unless you pull out your Menzel color book and you actually walk through the manual to document whether or not it actually conforms to the definitions of hydric soils, you can say it's hydric, but doesn't meet the definition of hydric soils. That's the question. And so again, this point was hung. We are willing to concede that point and let it be part of the wetland line. So again, we're going to remove our previous flag, add in this new flag, tie it in, update the plans to show we're not working within 25 feet of these new flags, and go from there. So again, just letting you know that's basically our conclusion. You'll see this information in the information we'll be submitting to you shortly. So the plans will be updated to reflect all these changes. And lastly, just to cover this intermittent stream swale. So the team has never disputed there made that wetland connection. There's a wetland connection. It goes off site. And from our understanding of, again, the Wetlands Protection Act and its performance standards is a question of, are we adversely impacting the wetlands on site and or directly off site where the water might be going? And so that's the purpose of your review with GCG, which is if we comply with the Mass DEP stormwater standards, there's no adverse impacts to stormwater from the site, which would also contribute to any impacts to downgrading areas. So therefore, anything that's hundreds of feet downstream wouldn't need to be delineated or anything else. The question is if we're not adversely impacting the wetlands on site or directly off site, that's there. And that's what Mr. Park was walking you through earlier, which was basically the fact that we're not increasing the peak rates to comply with the performance standards for the 2 and 10-year storms, and also comparing the fact that we have a large area that's already contributing to that area. For example, the fact that you have a lot of scour happening because there's a street that was never there in 100, 200 years ago, and now we're seeing scour from unregulated discharges from the town streets into the wetland system. And as Mr. Park showed, the rates from our site are not going to be contributing to those peak rates in the 2 and 10-year storm to comply with the Mass DEP stormwater standards, which again, performance standards required to confirm no adverse impact to the wetlands. So at this point, we believe we've received all comments and questions about the wetland delineation from Beals and Thomas, from your agent, and from the board. We do want to confirm that there are no more comments from that. We believe this delineation has had a very thorough review now at this point. And so we wanted to make sure that was the case because as we update plans, it impacts, multiple efforts on our part. So we're hoping that at least tonight we can have at least clarity that the questions that were raised on the delineation are those that are currently there, and really there shouldn't be any more because there's nothing else to really look at in terms of we've looked at everything. But if we could get confirmation of that tonight, we'd appreciate at least confirmation that there's no more comments on the wetland delineation besides what has been provided to us in the record.
So if I get you, you're basically accepting all the comments made by Beals and Thomas?
In terms of the wetland delineation, yes. The other comments are also being addressed. I can't say that because I'm not the one doing that. That's Mr. Park, but I believe we are basically addressing all those comments. I don't think there were actually any really issues with what they've written so far in terms of just making updates to the plans.
I have a question on the Beals and Thomas peer review that's not related to the wetland delineation. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we ask them to weigh in, getting back to our original topic of blasting, as whether this rock removal would either increase or decrease the amount of water in the wetland? Are they going to speak to that?
To the commission, my understanding is that they do plan to speak to that. From what was explained to me with Beals and Thomas and how they understood the order of operations, for lack of a better term, to go is they would do the review of the delineation first, as that may alter some of the effects on compliance with other regulations. And then once that was shown on a plan with the corrected delineation, then they would actually look at the compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act regulations and with the blasting effect on the wetlands.
Okay, Mr. Norton, may want to be present for that discussion as well, if we're going to talk about that again, the whole impact of blasting with regard to the volume in the, in case there are questions. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you re-present, but if Beals and Thomas has an issue, someone that's versed in that maybe want to be present to respond to it.
Acknowledged.
Or online, it could be online, doesn't have to be in person.
Well,
I guess.
just present one way or another.
Yeah, just this.
Okay, so you want us to?
We'd like confirmation. I mean, several members of this commission and the agent have walked the wetland line and reviewed it, and they made comments and asked for data. We provided that data. To those locations where we provided data, Beals and Thomas updated the flags, and we're letting those flags stand and use those flags for our delineation. The other flagging location that Beals and Thomas asked for is just a minor change. Again, we're conceding that point. So at this point, we don't believe there's locations where there's questions about delineation flags being accurate. And so we're hoping we can, close at least the matter that we won't have to go back in 2 meetings and revise the wetland line again because a comment came up 2 months after a site walk or 3 months after a site walk about the delineation. So that's what we'd request that respectfully that this matter be kind of closed up in terms of the delineation, not the review of the project and its performance standards, but just the delineation, because that really impacts. It drives multiple things like even the calculations and our limited work plans. We want those to be accurately reflected consistently in the future and make it easier for this commission as they review the project's performance standards.
Well, given that I haven't seen what they've changed and you didn't really show us what changed, and I don't know that that would have mattered because it's lines on a plan. I'd want to see it in the field to see what the differences were between the different locations. But since you're conceding to it, I mean, Beals and Thomas, I mean, they're not going to change their mind after they said this is where it should be. You're saying, okay,
Yeah.
What are we going to say? So I don't see a problem with that. The only thing, and I think what you're getting to, is that this is going to change all the plans because the line is going to be different on.
It's almost inconsequential. It's
Okay.
in terms of that. So the
But it changes-
plans have already been updated, and you can see on this plan here we've actually already updated the grading plan and the limit of work plan to reflect these changes.
okay.
Can I just clarify that it is extremely consequential. Sorry. It's extremely consequential for the purposes of us being able to advance all of the design, and I think that's the main point.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Yes,
I
yes.
just want to make sure you understand that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Our goal to resolve this is consequential to the project's whole design, and that's what we're
Yep.
hoping to resolve. And so again, so we've already looked at all these things on the plans. We're updating them that way. The new submittal is reflected that. So and to the members' comment again, I understand if you want to go out and look at the flag and talk about it, that's totally fine. I'm just making sure there's nothing else currently floating around because we want to feel relatively confident that we have something that's relatively locked in place because again, it does drive a lot of everything else, and I think it will be helpful to close
We
that.
clearly can't go out and do any investigations with the existing field conditions. So that's, the fact that you're accepting it without contesting it, then, that's fine for me.
I would say this is a great example of why it's nice to have an ANRAD filing before the other
Acknowledged.
filings, and then it's already taken care of and off the table, and there's no reason that couldn't have been done before the beginning of the ZBA process. But that's lots of water under the bridge in the culvert.
Does the commission agree to those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds reasonable at this time.
Yeah, again, we're not gonna hold you to perfectly to this, but again, it's good to have consensus at this time, that we feel like we're basically there, unless there's something crazy that, again, that you guys see about Beals and Thomas Line. Maybe you think it's too high, I don't know. But at this point, we're just gonna use those points, which I think it just makes it easy for everybody just to move forward, and also to ensure that Beals and Thomas's review can also proceed, because at this point, again, besides some lines changing, the work isn't substantially changing anyway. We're not moving buildings, significant grading. So in terms of performance standard review, the project isn't changing a lot. Although we'll be submitting some supplemental information, we're hoping that the review is already in progress, because the changes are again, I think from what we'll be showing is they're more just Scrivener updates and tweaks that just clarify particularly what GCG is driving at, which again, you're looking to them to make sure that there's no adverse impact to the wetlands and the stormwater.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arnold.
To the commission, I would just add, not to do with the wetlands delineation line, but in comments in general, while I have not reviewed the full ZBA's final decision and all the conditions on there, I know there are some conditions that relate to the erosion control and the 25-foot vegetated buffer strip around the wetlands that has to be kept vegetated. It may be in your best interest to make sure those are called out on the plans that you submit, as well as they're not on the current plans, as well as anything else from those conditions that may affect layout, phasing of the construction, anything like that.
We are talking about the 25-foot, which is part of the local bylaw. Is that something that was conceded by the applicant that they would follow in the ZBA hearing?
So at the ZBA hearing, we were going to respect the 25-foot buffer off the wetland line, and our project will continue to do so. Even as shown here, we've already pulled the limit of work back to be 25 feet off the Beals and Thomas's plans. So as I stated previously, there is we're respecting the 25-foot buffer. We're not proposing work within the 25-foot buffer. We're not expecting any adverse impacts to the 25-foot buffer. So again, we're respecting that, and the updated plans will reflect that.
Okay.
To the commission, just to clarify the exact language from the ZBA decision, which I just pulled up, says a vegetated buffer of a minimum of 25 feet shall be maintained between the edge of the potential vernal pool extent in the project. The area shall remain in its undisturbed vegetated condition, except that it shall be maintained free of invasive species. I'm not sure if the ZBA had intended that to mean you should be submitting an invasive management plan, or that you're just not adding new invasives to it. But if it is the former, I think the commission would need to have any management plan for the invasives that is that close to the wetlands be part of this filing.
Okay. Just to get back to another point, and then I'll, Mike, do you agree to another hearing if okay. And you're okay with that as well? Okay, so we'll amend that scope to do a third hearing. Thank you, both of you. Do we want to open it up for public comment, or do you have something else?
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, with this, all right, yes, I will open it up to the public.
Do you want to?
I just wanted to ask again, Becca, you may have mentioned this in terms of the timing of the receipt of Beals and Thomas's remaining peer review comments. It would be great to receive that soon so that we can incorporate that into the next response package that we will be submitting next week.
Okay.
All right, do we have any comments from the general public?
I am not seeing any, there's at least one raised hand from Claudia Bennett.
Oh, okay. Sure, go ahead. Why don't you come off mute?
I'm off mute. Claudia Bennett, 9 Sandstone Way. I just wanted to comment on some comments that Carl made earlier in terms of lay people and how they experience that property now. And I was at a meeting earlier tonight, unrelated, well, distantly related maybe to this project, And, you know, someone out of the blue just started talking about, when you think about the project going in at 61 Waverly Street, it's hard not to imagine what it's going to do to the flooding in the area, based on, even if you think about what it was like on Waverly Street last week. So, you know, that is sort of a layperson's perspective, and yet there's a lot of common sense there. And I think anybody who drove down Waverly Street last week after the rains would have similar thoughts about turning this property, adding so much impervious landscape to it. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Claudia.
Mr. Ring?
The last thing I would say is relative to the models and you guys discussing how much water might be in the stone. The models are assuming the inputs. So if the models assume it's impervious, they're not changing that. And yet, if the rock is got water flowing through it, like many people think, then the models are not going to predict that.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Anyone else from the general public?
To the commission, I do not see any more online hands, and I do not see anyone in person standing up at the podium.
All right. Okay, is everyone good?
Do we need a motion to continue the hearing?
Yeah, so let's pick, should we talk about a date first?
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 weeks is what we're doing, every other week? What would you like?
Correct. I thought we agreed at the last hearing that the next
February
meeting would be on February 2nd.
Second.
Okay.
That's off-cycle, right?
Correct. The next one after that, if it was agreeable to everyone, would be March 2nd, unless you did a Tuesday in February after the February 2nd.
And
Yeah, so this is back to a
That's a
Monday, so
Monday.
this is in 13
Yes.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Monday.
And for the next meeting, we won't have the other project? We'll still just have 61?
The 10 to 60 Main Street project was unable to meet the submission deadline for February 2nd. They are currently aiming for March 2nd, presuming that will
Okay.
be an off-cycle meeting date.
Okay, so we'll have you alone again.
Okay.
So it's your benefit.
Mike, does that work for you?
When do they need us, when do they submit the documents? Because, sorry, February 2nd is like 2 weeks. So if they don't submit the documents till the end of next week, or middle of next week, we're down to like 4 days to review a substantial project. Not, it's
Sorry,
not,
could I chime in? We were told a while back that materials are due 2 Fridays before, which would be this Friday.
okay,
We're aiming to have everything submitted by this Friday.
Perfect.
okay.
That works.
Make it happen.
Should work.
Is it would it be possible to schedule the hearing subsequent to the second? I know that this room books up and there could be scheduling issues, given the off-cycle nature of the hearing.
To the commission, if you were to keep Mondays, which are generally open, the next available off-cycle meeting after February 2nd would be March 2nd, as February 16th is a holiday. If you were to move to February 17th, which is another Tuesday, you would likely be intersecting, I believe, with the ZBA, and they would be in this room.
Okay, so you're asking for the meeting after the meeting on the 2nd?
Correct. Would the 24th work?
To the commission, you would have a regular meeting on the 23rd, so you would have a meeting 2 nights in a row.
That's 24th is a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we,
What about the 19th? Thursday?
that's the planning board?
I believe that would be planning board.
That's planning, and Wednesday is Board of Selectmen?
We can bump them.
Yeah,
Through the commission, the applicant suggested February 24th. That's only 5 business days before the March 2nd, which is the Monday. I mean, the applicant may disagree, but I don't think 5 business days will make that much of a difference in the process.
Shockingly, we would disagree with that. I mean, our preference would be the prior week. Actually, the 19th would have worked. Any of those days actually would have worked, but I was trying to keep to a Tuesday.
You're looking for a 19th as your second meeting after this?
That would work for me. I haven't checked with the rest of our team members.
the night, no, but we don't have this room.
Oh.
We don't have this room.
To the commission, I'm looking up the bookings now for the room.
And this is the only room equipped for television. What about sooner than that, like the week of the 9th? It'd only be a week from the February 2nd meeting. I mean, we're meeting on the 9th anyway, right?
Yeah.
To the commission, your regular meeting is on the 9th. That week, the Tuesday is ZBA, the Thursday does not currently have anything listed, though I believe the planning board is usually then. They may have moved to the following week. The 24th, which was previously mentioned, ZBA has their meeting here. And again, Thursday currently is shown as open, but I'm not entirely confident on that.
Is that
So the next off-cycle normal date would be March 2nd?
Correct.
Yeah.
Is it, I know that you said that you disagree, but
Yep.
could you take March 2nd?
I would, sorry. Yeah. So I think this next hearing will have a substantive amount of material to share, and I think there'll be, pretty significant discussion.
February 2nd.
February 2nd. The following one after that, I think, would be useful for the purpose of maybe any follow-on comments that come out of the hearing, and our preference would have been to have something sooner than a month out, because I think we could have gotten more done. If that's the only thing that's available, at this juncture, maybe we just continue to the 19th and put a placeholder for the, for the 2nd, and then put a placeholder for the March 2nd date. As I've mentioned before, we're also open to presenting at a regularly scheduled hearing.
Yeah, see, the thing is, we're not televised at regular hearings, and we're trying to keep, this is, maybe you're not sympathetic to this, but we are now meeting every week to try to accommodate the 40Bs and to try to make them as transparent as possible. And so we're balancing a lot of issues here. And we are sharing this room with other boards, so it is a balancing act. I would suggest going to February 2nd, working through as much as we can that night, and putting a placeholder for March 2nd. And if for some reason on February 2nd we find that there's a date open, we could try to accommodate you if
Okay.
that works.
Thank you.
Yeah, Becca, maybe you can figure out for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from there on, what's an open night that might be available for us.
I will confirm with the boards. I think the biggest conflicts will be ZBA, planning, select board, and I believe the schools alternate with the select board in here on Wednesdays.
The school committee does?
School committee.
I believe so.
I thought they had another room.
I may be wrong, but I believe they're in here at least some of the time.
You're right, Becca.
Okay,
All right,
So,
Thank you.
So a motion to continue this hearing to February 2nd at 7:05?
Can we make it 7 even, so we don't have to wait an extra minute?
We can make it 7 if you show up at the next site walk. That's a motion.
Second.
roll call vote?
We don't have to do that.
Oh, we have someone online, we do.
Oh, do we? Oh, we do, okay.
Ackerman, aye.
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Molten eye.
Juan's aye, motion passes, so we'll see you on the 2nd, 7:05. Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Damn, I was hoping we could just raise our hands. Just like the old days.
Yeah. All right, we're done with our scheduled hearing, so now we're moving on to other business. Review of open space status, 0 Cross Street, map 18, parcel 82, conservation and open space requirements. Harry,
Night. Thank you. Roberta is here. Do you want to have Roberta explain this? Do you- are
yeah,
you feel
I
comfortable
should
with it?
probably recuse myself, yeah. Being on the Open Space and Recreation Committee, unless we're,
How many people from the Open Space Committee constitutes a quorum?
we have quorum, so
So somebody would probably need to leave or recuse.
do I have to like leave the room? Yeah.
Wait, what's the problem?
So
The two of you make a quorum?
No, online.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, forgot about that part.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So just through the commission and for the general public's understanding, this item is regarding a topic that also was before the Open Space Committee recently. There's currently a quorum of the Open Space Committee, and so for it to be discussed and deliberated, then people from the Open Space Committee would need to leave the room for it to no longer be a quorum, since it is not a posted open space meeting.
Okay. Yeah, Craig, wanna? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, Harry. I can't
All
hear you.
right, so Carl, you can share the meeting now.
Ask somebody online to leave the meeting?
Well, they've taken the time to be online, so that's fine.
Jean Walker has her hand raised.
You want me to leave?
No, why don't you stay, I'll leave.
All right, look.
That's okay. I mean, that's why we have a
All we're
vice
doing
chair.
is accepting a motion.
Yeah,
Okay,
so Carl's now the chair.
okay.
For the record, our chair is temporarily leaving the meeting at the moment, recusing himself from the discussion. Carl Hackinson, our vice chair, is temporarily taking over as chair for the purposes of this discussion.
Okay, thank you, Becca. What?
Nothing, go ahead.
We have an issue before us that has come to the attention of the town with regard to a development in, for the most part, is in Hopkinton, includes some land in Ashland that is being contested. And so I would ask Roberta Solomon, Chair of the Open Space Committee, to come to the podium and explain the situation and explain the motion that the Open Space Committee adopted. And then we will see if the Conservation Commission wants to adopt the motion as well.
Thank you, and I apologize for the confusion about a quorum. I had no idea who from our committee was going to be online for your earlier part of your meeting.
No
So
need for apologies.
That's why we didn't deal with that. Okay, so
Identify yourself.
I'm Roberta Suleman, the Chair of the Open Space and Recreation Committee, 28 Woodridge Lane in Ashland. Very briefly, what the situation is that there's a solar project on Franklin Road in Hopkinton, and they are successor owners. Agilius is the owner of that solar field now that is under operation. And when they acquired it with some orders that came from the Town of Hopkinton Planning Board that included orders of condition for their operation of that property.
It was a special permit application.
And it was done back in August 19th of 2020. And what it said was that they have certain part of the parcel to use for the solar array, and the other part of the parcel is designated open space that must remain so. And that parcel dribbles over into Ashland. It's about 1.8 acres in Ashland over in the corner of Cross Street. But all of that designated open space, the part in Hopkinton and the part in Ashland, is supposed to be permanently protected under two of the conditions under the special permit. It's supposed to be protected either by being transferred to a conservation entity that will hold it in perpetuity as conservation land, or to have a conservation restriction placed on the property. Neither one of those things has happened. And what has happened is that Agilius has a buyer lined up, a developer lined up to buy the piece of open space that's on Cross Street in Ashland, which is against the special permit, blatantly against the special permit. So the Town of Hopkinton is being asked to enforce the conditions of their special permit, which would protect the open space in Hopkinton and protect the open space in Ashland. And we are also asking the Town of Ashland to support Hopkinton in enforcing their order, doing whatever they can to help them enforce their order, and to prevent that piece from being sold, because it's supposed to be protected. And residents in that area, led by Susan Thorne, have done a lot of research and have pulled up a lot of information that they have sent to the planning board in Hopkinton, and they've been in touch with the officials in Hopkinton, and they've done the same, sent it to officials here in Ashland. The chair of the planning board suggested that the open space committee might be able to be of some help in Ashland. So at our meeting last Tuesday, we unanimously voted in favor of a motion that would support the effort to urge the Town of Hopkinton to enforce the findings and decision of the Office of the Planning Board for the Town of Hopkinton dated August 19th, 2020, regarding 0 Cross Street and 71 Franklin Road, to protect the full parcel, including open space in Hopkinton and Ashland, pursuant to special conditions number 28 and 29, and to urge the Town of Hopkinton and the Town of Ashland to work together to immediately enforce the findings and decision of the Office of the Planning Board for the Town of Hopkinton dated August 19th, 2020. Now, Ashland obviously can't enforce a Hopkinton special permit, but they can work to support Hopkinton and urge Hopkinton to protect the open space, because it includes land in Ashland that is supposed to be protected under this special permit. So we passed that motion on Tuesday and brought it to the Conservation Commission for them to also discuss it and consider supporting it as well.
And some of you are familiar with this piece of property. We went out to check the delineation on it a month or so ago. Well, we all did except for Preston.
The special permit was recorded.
Was.
I believe it was,
It was listed, because I looked it up, and it says that it was supposed to be recorded. I looked up on the registry, and there is something under the name that was listed in the special permit that is recorded. It would have cost me $1 to look at it, so I didn't bother looking at it, but I'm assuming that it was the recording of the special permit. It's very clear, I mean, the plans attached to that special permit show the land in Ashland as, protected open space, or to be protected as open space. I don't know if that makes it any stronger, that they can't sell it and develop it, but, I mean, it's recorded now in the registry, so that seems to be pretty strong justification for not being able to develop that property.
Well, what we are considering is just asking the town officials to ask the town of Hopkinton to enforce the conditions
So
of
that
their special
hasn't,
permit.
that hasn't happened yet?
No.
Oh.
So all we're doing is adopting a motion supporting
Yeah,
that
that's
action.
fine. I wish there was more that we could do.
Well-
Can Ashland put a lien on it since it's supposed to be
Well, let's not go down that
conservation
road.
land?
Let's not go down that road.
Has town council been queried on this?
Yes.
Okay. What's their take?
On the situation or on this motion?
No, on the situation.
Yes.
What's their take?
Well, if their take had been strong, we wouldn't be making this motion.
Okay.
So you need a motion, you can't make it. What does the motion say that?
Says right
Okay.
there.
I'll make a motion to support and the effort to urge the town of Hopkinton to enforce the findings and decision of the Office of the Planning Board for the town of Hopkinton dated August 19th, 2020 regarding
It should say 0 Cross Street, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's 0 Cross Street?
Yeah.
Not Franklin Road?
No, 0 Cross Street and 71 Franklin Road.
Okay,
That's-
0 Cross
that's
Street
the way
and
to-
71 Franklin Road to protect the full parcel, including open space in Hopkinton and Ashland pursuant to special conditions number 28 and 29, and to urge the town of Hopkinton and the town of Ashland to work together to immediately enforce the findings and decision of the Office of the Planning Board for the town of Hopkinton dated August 19th, 2020. You say that twice, but okay. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Ackerman, aye.
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye. The
Moulton, aye.
motion passes. Oh, sorry, Bill. Motion passes.
Thank
And,
you, thank you very much.
We will, Becca, if you could let the select board or the town manager know that we adopted the motion.
I will do so.
Okay, thanks.
And
Thank you, Roberta.
Just, it would be nice if there'd be something else that we could do, since it's a recorded decision, it should be enforceable.
for the purposes of the meeting record, our chair, Greg Wands, has returned to the meeting and I believe is taking back over as chair.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is review minutes from January 5th, 2026.
It's gonna be for this meeting. How long are the minutes gonna be for this meeting?
How long are they
Not too
already,
long,
Sophia?
Sophia.
When the minutes turn to hours.
I'm gonna put that down.
I have some comments here.
So to the commission, I have the version with Jean's comments on here, which I think is just one typo, so I will
Yeah, the
go.
Seals and Thomas.
I will go slowly for anyone else who has comments.
Okay, I have two, and they're minor. On page 2, I don't have numbers here, so it's the 7th line down. It says, Mr. Hackinson responded that all future 40B, that should be plural, hearings.
It's the 5th line down.
Line 51.
Did you find it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, and on the next page, this may be the typo that you're talking about, it's, at least on mine, it's 6 lines down. It says town forests, and that should either, forest should be caps or town should not be.
Okay, cap on line 96, near the end of the line.
Sorry, was it,
The F.
Capitalize the
Capital
F in forest.
And that's all I have.
and I will add that Jean's corrections had corrected to just respond. I think that might have been it for me.
That was it for me, yeah.
Did I hear somebody say there was a typo in Beals and Thomas's name somewhere in here?
Yeah, it's down to the bottom, it was like, it said Seals and Thomas,
It's not coming
unless
up.
you already picked it up.
I only got Beals and Thomas all the way through.
Okay,
Must have been fixed.
yeah. That's it, okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the meeting minutes from January 5th, 2026 as amended and discussed?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote?
Heckman, aye.
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Juan's aye. Motion passes. Meeting minutes are accepted. Okay, next on the agenda is member prerogative, commissioners, education, various topics. Does anyone have any member prerogatives?
Yeah, Becca, can you send me the Beals and Thomas? I didn't see it.
Yes, I'm gonna resend it. I was fairly certain it went out, but I'm also having a hard time finding it. So
Yeah,
I
send
will-
it to everyone, because
I
I
will
don't think I
resend
have
it
it
to
either.
everybody. And it's also on the website.
Okay, anyone else? Do I
Okay,
hear a
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Heckman, aye.
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Juan's aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Becca.